Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. Apparently, I was the only one to get the memo. We're starting to take this show seriously now.
I showered.
Yeah, you.
I thought it was Hawaiian shirt day.
Phoning it in.
Every day is Hawaiian shirt
Jesus.
day.
Yes, it is.
And look, he's a short sleeves. It's spring. It's
Yeah,
spring.
you know, it is.
I thought it would be appropriate as we do 42.
Well, when do we do our swimsuit issue?
I'm not ready.
Because the Jackie Robinson movie 42 has all sorts of old-timey talk, and I thought I'd be better equipped for the old-timey talk.
Oh, there we go. For
Were I
your,
in
for
this
your
suit.
red Grange.
I've been looking forward to this movie for a long time. I have a lot to say about Jackie Robinson, but Christy, tell us what the movie's about.
This is the long-awaited biopic about Mariano Rivera. You've been a huge fan of his for years. It's long overdue. He's retiring this season, so I think it's appropriate to look back at the greatest closer in baseball history. Take a look.
The world's not so simple anymore. I guess it never was.
Think about the abuse that he's gonna take.
What you gonna do if one of these pictures throws through your head?
I'll duck. I want a player who's got the guts not to fight back.
Give me a uniform. Give me a number on my back.
I'm Jackie Robinson, set with
I'll give you the guts.
I dodged the pen.
You will remember me.
Every single time.
No idea what we're talking about.
He's the only player who still wears 42 in baseball. He's a Yankees closer. And he's great.
Grandfathered in. Right before they retired it, he had it, and he didn't give it. Other people who had 42 gave it up. He didn't give it up because he said, "No, I'm honoring Jackie Robinson by wearing." So he's the only guy allowed to wear it.
But I thought they said in the movie that now everybody wears 42
On
in
one day
April.
a year.
Oh,
On
one day a
April
year.
They said on April on his debut day.
Everyone.
No, but there was a thing where it said it was retired.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's
It
retired
is.
throughout baseball except for one
Unless
guy.
Mariano
gotcha.
Rivera.
Also,
Okay.
based on a true story.
Right, based on a true story. Yeah, it turns out he wasn't even the first black player. He was the 9th.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
Also,
Pumpsy Green was the first, right?
as it turns out, Jackie Robinson wasn't even black.
Wasn't even black. That's the thing, right? This has all just been again. It's the liberals going into history and messing around with it, right?
So since you know so much about this, could you enjoy it, or were you nitpicking the things that were different?
I gave up nitpicking like 40 minutes in. There wasn't that much to nitpick on. There was some crazy stuff like when we're not giving anything away. They win the pennant. It's not really relevant, but they have Red Barber say that the Dodgers win the pennant with a tie-breaking home run. They're in Pittsburgh. Like the game's not over. Like you got to keep playing. The home team gets the bat. It's just there's like some silliness. Maybe I misheard him that he said if the Dodgers now hold on, they'll win the pennant. But basically the baseball stuff was pretty good. I thought the pitchers were pretty good. Like that's frequently tough. Why in baseball movies you don't see the full motion of a pitcher because it's so hard. But these guys, there were some guys throwing. It looked pretty good. You know, he got super late jumps on steals, and his swing was a little awkward. There was a little bit of Gary Coopering him. It seemed like they were protecting Chadwick Boseman from a full exposure of what he looked
he
like
had this
swinging.
weird stance with like his backhand was
he
way up. Was
he
that
imitated
the
the Jackie Robinson stance, but then they had him sort of swinging late, but it still looked a lot. That said, the baseball stuff I thought was pretty good.
Because they all went to like baseball camp, and Brian Helgeland, I did a whole story on this movie. He told me that they went off the box score so that every single play, every single game is authentic to what happened. So when
it seemed like that.
Right. So there's a moment that's very, very dramatic where he hits a home run in this pennant race game off of a pitcher who had dinged him earlier in the season. That actually happened. I mean, it feels like a very nice piece of dramatic turnaround there, but they looked back and they found, is there someone that he homered off of?
Right.
Who hit him earlier in the year, and like, aha, there was. And so that was a real moment that they reenacted.
If I may speak for the viewers who know fuck all about baseball, as do I really like this movie.
Okay.
I find it just, because I went in sort of, I mean, I like sports movies way more than I like sports. I was kind of dreading this one because I thought it was going to be such a sort of hagiography, and it was going to be all sort of dappled light and, let's end racism. But it's a much
It is very feel-good.
But
It turns out it was pro-racist.
But no, well, yeah, surprise. No, it is much smarter than that, though. I mean, like, Jackie Robinson is not presented as this sort of, hero, saint, perfect guy. He has this rage within him that what's heroic is that he doesn't express it, or that he forces himself not to, that he makes himself become the sort of plastic, dashboard figurine that baseball needed at that time, but he wasn't that guy.
That's why they picked him.
Yeah, and the movie's very smart about sort of creating that dichotomy and letting us know that this is Jackie Robinson, the image, this is Jackie Robinson that he knew he had to present to the world, but here's what was really going on with him, and here's how much he did feel those slights and how much he did want to respond but didn't, you know.
And he's at one moment where he finally snaps, right? When Ben Chapman, the Phillies manager, is
great guy.
Horrible,
great performance by Alan Tudyk.
Right, kind of playing against type.
Yeah.
To the point that Gray, who was sitting next to me, kept saying, Alan, no.
Quit dropping M-bombs.
Exactly.
Tough role. I mean,
Yeah.
it had to be somewhat draining.
Uncomfortable.
No,
But then he
he's-
finally loses it, but in quiet, away from the baseball field.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't let them know that they've gotten to him.
I love the way the games were shot in terms of like the suspense of the base stealing and all that
Yeah, I
stuff.
thought they did a great job with sort of the way that one of the things that Jackie Robinson was so well known for was just getting one of the first players, or at least of that era. I'm sure Ty Cobb did too, guys like Eddie Collins, but to get into the opposing pitcher's head, that dancing, that generally wasn't done. White guys didn't do that. They stole bases. Ty Cobb stole nearly 900 bases, but they weren't.
I hear they
weren't-
can't jump also.
they can't jump, but they weren't messing around. They weren't trying to get inside the pitcher's head, which is now very much a part of baseball if you're on base and you're a base field.
Where I think the movie goes wrong is they set up this narrator. They give you Wendell Smith as the sort of, you know, we're going to be seeing the story through his eyes. He's going to be telling the story to the world. He's going to be, you know, taking care of you know, he's been hired by the Dodgers to sort of shuttle Robinson around and kind of take care of him. And then he disappears from the movie.
Yeah, was it?
He drives him around.
Yeah, but he's after the first half of the film though, he's gone.
No, he's sitting in the stand with his typewriter.
Right,
Yeah,
but having him as the narrator wasn't necessary. It added nothing.
I think
he just could have been a character in the movie.
They didn't need to have him at all, frankly. And if they were going to have him, they should have at least figured out a way to weave him in throughout. He literally just becomes a virtual non-entity for the second half of the movie, and that's the better half of the movie. So I'm thinking maybe just not have him. Like it seemed kind of a crutch that then they throw away, you know, midway through.
No, but it's also true though to what Jackie Robinson's experience was that he needed somebody to be his friend and be his guide.
Fine,
until that guy
but
existed.
dramatically they don't incorporate him well into the film.
Here's one tweaky thing they did differently. So they show in the movie, they show Jackie Robinson meeting Wendell Smith as he's getting off the bus in Daytona. That did not actually happen that way. They didn't show any of the Red Sox tryout. The horrible farce of a Red Sox tryout. Wendell Smith actually helped coordinate that tryout with Jackie Robinson and two other players. So they actually met in Boston. They actually already knew each other like a year prior, but they make it sound like they met that day in Daytona. I mean, again, it's like it's the based on.
Right.
You have to have a meet at some point. It's just a little bit different.
There's a few things the movie does, I think, pacing-wise. It does a few things that I felt are somewhat distracting, and that's one of them. I felt like it sets up this writer character that really isn't important to the story, and it almost feels like, I don't know, I can't figure out why that's in there. There's a scene where, where Jackie Robinson's wife is, upset about going to a game late because the babysitter's late. And the way that's shot, like you get this whole scene like, oh my God, something's going to happen to this baby. Like it's telegraphing something's going to happen to the baby.
And then they go to the game and there's storm clouds brewing at the game. You're like, oh my God, the storm of influenza is coming to the poor little baby.
Right, like lightning's going to strike and that baby's going to get killed and the mom was gone.
The babysitter's going to kidnap her. Like, you're right. There's this whole setup for a thing that nothing happens.
Right. It's like, well, then why even put that in the movie?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I guess it was a way of saying it was a way of getting Rachel Robinson to the games without us thinking that she was an irresponsible
child.
But that seemed
or
like
just showing his daily life was like, maybe like juggling family and the job.
But it did. Frankly, the good news for the film is that I forgot about that. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. I was thinking I didn't know something terrible happened to the baby. And then 7 minutes later, I was like, oh, well, I guess the baby's all right. Good. Yeah.
I mostly like this movie. One of the things that I would have liked to see more is how Robinson got to where he was in the beginning. Like your first introduction to him is he's already one of the star players of the Kansas City Monarchs, right? And the best you get is, when Branch says, when Branch Rickey says, I'm looking for a player with a future, not with a past, and that's why they didn't go with Satchel Paige. You still like Robinson arrives on the scene in this movie kind of already formed in whole cloth. Like that's it. You don't get much as to what made him
Yeah, they have
who he was.
They have a
And
little. They have throwaway dialogue about it.
Yeah.
They tell you he'd been an
UCLA
officer and that he'd shown some backbone in the military, sort of getting busted down a rank because he wouldn't get off the back of the bus.
But I
You tell
kinda
him what a
like
big
what it-
star he was at UCLA.
But I would have liked to have seen that more. I would have liked to seen a little bit more. I think that to me, it's important to see how a guy who ends up in the time and place that he's at, what gave him the tools, what made him the person he was to get there.
Well, Brian
yeah,
Uncle
I
told me
agree.
that they just wanted to, they were going to tell 2 years in 2 hours. You can't tell the entire story, of course. They focus on these pivotal years.
And the movie really kind of sets up the whole idea of, so much of what happens in civil rights is about timing. And this was very much about World War II is over, black soldiers fought for the nation, like it's time to start incorporating them into other facets of daily life. And so I think his war experience and the mention of his college experience, I felt like that was enough. I felt like I came in as somebody who didn't know much about Jackie Robinson, sort of armed with, okay, here's this guy and here's how I got here. I really like Chadwick Boseman's performance. I think that he makes this guy interesting and not just sort of a, calendar model of, great heroes
He
of
looks a lot like him.
of black sports. And Nicole Bahari from Shame, who plays his wife, they were, I loved their dynamic together. I mean, they were romantic and sexy, and I never felt like she was just the girl along for the ride. She really felt integral to being his listening post and his rock
And they showed
for so
that
much
relationship
stuff.
very well. I just feel like you came out of this movie, I felt like I learned more about Branch Rickey than I had actually learned about Jackie Robinson. And maybe that's a function of kind of already knowing what Jackie Robinson had done.
Let's
But I
talk
felt
really
like I
fast.
learned more about the character played by Harrison Ford.
Let's talk really fast about Harrison Ford's performance, because I think it's a rare time where you forget you're watching Harrison Ford. I think he disappears under the makeup and the clothes and the voice
Although
and all
sometimes
that.
I thought he was
Who?
replaced with Nick Nolte.
And sometimes I thought, wow, Harrison Ford is a pretty effective Nixon.
But usually you're always watching Harrison Ford.
No,
He looks old this time.
sometimes I looked at the nose, but for the most part, I think, I did kind of forget that it was Harrison Ford, and I kind of got into the character. An array of great character actors in this movie. John C. McGinley as Red Barber.
I want to see that movie. I want to
yeah.
see John C. McGinley do a whole movie as Red Barber.
Max Gale and Chris Meloni and Lucas Black and Hamish Linklater. I mean, and again, Alan Tudyk, an extraordinary performance, really chilling for somebody who's known for comedic work. Just
So uncomfortable.
yeah,
watching
he's
that. So effective.
as Dave put it, he's a one-man Django Unchained as far as the N-word goes.
Should we do numbers?
Yeah, we should do numbers. Branch Rickey has one of the great lines in the history of America, which was not in there, which I was, luck is the residue of design, which is I use all the time. It's a great line. I just think, I just want to say about, because it's my one opportunity to talk about Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, like the number one hero in my life, given to me by my father, and he's not just, Jackie Robinson's the most important sports figure in the world, ever. I don't think it's deniable. I mean, Muhammad Ali can give him a run now, but as far as sort of, there were no blacks anywhere in any sport. Basketball came later. Jews were playing basketball at the time. That's how crazy things were. Jews ruled the NBA. And some of Jackie Robinson's teammates went to the NFL because he was a great football player at UCLA too. But and one of the sad things about all this is that right now, after reaching I think nearly 27%, nearly 30% in the 1970s, and still in the 90s being at nearly 20%. 7.7% of Major League Baseball players are black.
It's the lowest since like 1950.
Yeah, it's come all the way back around.
Really?
Wow. Black kids. Well, it costs money, and there aren't fields in inner cities. Those are some of the generic big reasons.
But I thought like all the scouting was happening in like Panama and
plenty of Latin players,
Right.
but American
but
blacks.
that doesn't count as well. Okay,
Dominican
gotcha.
American
Oh,
blacks, which is
gotcha.
who electrified and changed the game so
Right.
dynamically. Aren't playing anymore. They're all playing football. They're all playing basketball. They're playing golf. Now,
Tennis.
hopefully, there's some thought that the concussions that NFL players, that the injuries that NFL players are having, will cause some of these parents to say, "Get a glove. Let's try that. You can play a lot longer, and you're not gonna lose your brain." So, I just love that there was a Jackie Robinson movie, and I thought it was pretty good. So, I gave it a 7.2.
I would have liked to have seen more about his character. Like
Yeah.
I said, I thought it mostly worked. I thought it's a collection of great bits, but I felt like it didn't come together quite as a whole the way I wanted it to, so I only give it a 6.
I would have given it a 7.5 if not for the 9-minute trot around the bases after his home run at Forbes Field against the Pirates and the deafening music that told us this was an important moment.
Terrible
It's like, shouldn't there be
by Mark
sparks
Isham.
coming from the lights?
Totally.
And he's
Yeah,
followed by
totally.
Robert Redford?
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's why I give it a 6.5 because I think it's very earnest and very safe and very feel good. I like Chadwick Boseman a lot. He has a great presence about him. It's very much worth seeing, but it's not great.
I'm maybe too kind because I don't know about sports and because this is so much better than what I feared it was going to be. I'm going to say I give it a 7.9. I really was affected by it. I got a little like at the end when they showed all the baseball players wearing the 42. I got a little.
Yeah, it's a sweet moment. It's
It's
coming
in
up.
a few days. It's going to happen really soon.
I'm not going to
April
watch
15th.
that. It's just in the movie. It's
That's why they're
interesting.
releasing
you know.
this movie.
Alonso has not seen, after all this, Alonso has not seen Rudy.
It's true.
You need to
I've
get-
never seen Rudy.
You need to see Rudy.
I was really shocked when they started playing Wild Thing.
It's not that good, but you'll get it.
Have you seen Hoosiers?
Yes, I saw Hoosiers.
All right.
All right, so a 6.9, our overall rating for 42.